This is our big crowd today. I'm on.
Is he going to make us feel bad for being here because nobody else showed up?
No, not at all.
1, 2, 3, 4.
We're going to be one less after Sunday school too because Laura's leaving. I have nothing planned. Justin didn't. I thought he had it arranged. Usually he does. So.
I remember he had asked around, and he had asked Kenny specifically, and Kenny said, I'm not going to be here, I'll be in Milwaukee. And that was the last I heard, so.
That's okay. If there's nobody, it falls on me. I get that. I'm okay with that.
You already have my answer.
Yes, you gave me an answer. It's Corey's turn. Where's Corey? He's in Alaska. How convenient, is what Paul said. So I can pull something out here, but topic, any ideas for a topic that you guys might want to discuss? We can just have a discussion. We got about a half an hour.
Apologize for being tardy.
No, it's okay. Because then we're going to have music, and I don't know how we're going to do music. It's going to be you and I.
You and I know how to play guitar, so I think.
Well, I didn't bring my guitar. I brought because I thought Megumi'd be here, bass player, right? But I'll play bass if you want to play. Okay. So, what would you like to learn about today? What would you like to discuss today? Maybe teach us what is on your heart. Are you streaming, sir? Okay. And there was crickets in the room.
There's no crickets in here.
Well, I have Justin teaching us about wisdom, right? You want to go back over what I taught a couple years ago on the scientific aspect of wisdom, and
Sure.
I have a PowerPoint for that too. Let me send it to you, Jeff. You can throw it up there. It'll probably help. Let's see. Share. No. That's not what I wanted. Yeah, give me just a second here and we'll make this work better.
Scientific aspect of wisdom, huh?
Yeah.
Was that pre or post-COVID?
Post-COVID.
Post-COVID, okay.
Why? Why do you ask?
I don't know. I feel like that there was a change in the scientific aspect of wisdom somewhere around 2020.
Oh, I see.
I mean, it may have started before then, but
And what do you see as the changes?
I don't know. It felt like the way that science was being presented was as an absolute instead of more of a, because the role of science is a search for answers, not necessary to present absolutes.
Oh man. Well, no. Yes and no. But do you remember what the narrative was in the very beginning?
It was like when the flu happened the first time.
No, why did we isolate? Why did we
Not spread the germs.
to do what? Why didn't we want to spread the germs?
To save lives.
No,
That's what they put out on the news.
I know.
to flatten the curve, right?
Right.
What's that mean? It means you're going to get it. We just don't want everybody to get it at the same time. They said it wasn't if you're going to get it, it was when you're going to get it, because it was like the flu. It's very communicable. And we're going to do this to flatten the curve. That's the very first narrative. And it's very vivid to me because we came back from France where there was nothing in the news. And we were disconnected from the news anyways about this. And we came right in the day before they closed international travel. So it's like, oh my gosh. Very vivid to me because I started doing some research on certain aspects of what they were proposing. And do you remember they said no masks? Masks would not be effective at the very beginning. You remember that? See, you don't remember that. That's exactly what they said. Masks would not be effective. We're going to isolate to flatten the curve so we don't have everybody overwhelming the healthcare system.
Which is why they originally said 2-week shutdown.
Yes, we don't want to overwhelm the healthcare system. And then we started getting the black blood people dying BS, which was all not true. Yeah, New York hospital, this COVID, this new virus is giving people blood like molasses, and they showed pictures. Don't you remember that on the news? That was like 2 or 3 days.
Don't remember that.
What do you guys remember? Oh my gosh.
I remember
Coughing my
2 weeks,
head off.
2 week shutdown, masking up. You have to
No,
get
no
the
mask.
COVID shot.
No mask. No, that's way later.
Well, that's what I remember is.
So we're talking March of 20. We got back the 10th of March, 2020.
Well, I remember doing.
And the 11th, they closed international travel.
Like the 2 week shutdown, and then it was 2 more weeks, and then so on and so forth. And then I remember everyone saying, "Hey, you have to get the COVID shot."
There was not a COVID shot.
Or for another year.
No, you're like 12 months fast forward,
Starting around
or
Thanksgiving.
6 months. Yeah,
starting
6
around
months.
Thanksgiving of 2019, I remember the kids in school were coughing and coughing and coughing.
Yeah,
sick,
it was
and
going around.
explosive diarrhea. It all went through our school prior to February. I got it over President's Day weekend in February, and it was the worst flu I have ever had.
Yes.
They shut the school down March 13th, saying it'll be a 2-week shutdown. And then we never went back. But they started masks right after that because when we sent everything home with the kids, the beginning of June, we teachers had to go through all of their stuff and take them their crayons and their supplies and things because they had just left everything at school. We were required to wear masks.
In June, yes.
Yeah.
In March, they said no masks. It took them 3 to 4 weeks to change that narrative. And they decided masks were going to work. And so when I got back from Paris, I thought, man, nobody wears masks anymore. So background, I've worked as an asbestos supervisor. I know how to properly use personal protective equipment to keep people from ingesting the 5 to 6 micron asbestos fibers. I've worked in nuclear power like Paul has. I know how to prevent people from ingesting large particles, right? Alpha particles, beta particles, which I don't know what the size of them, of the larger particles, right? It would have to be multiple particles, not just an atom. It's obviously not an atom, but so I have a lot of experience in both those areas for a lot of years. And I remember that, there was a big, in industry, the mask. What can you wear a mask for and what can't you wear a mask for? They determined that the masks were basically useless for many things. You could not wear a mask for asbestos because you will still ingest particles. The masks didn't filter out 6-micron particles. 6, 7, 5, too small. Think the mask did, I don't remember, I'm not going to quote it, but so I thought, well, and I also remember that there was a movement in the medical industry to not wear masks, which I started researching right after I got back. In my research, I found 3 or 4 articles by major research universities that said all the major research universities in the United States stopped masks, N95 masks, because they were not effective. And this went on for 3-4 years, and they showed no difference in infection rate over that 3 to 4 years.
So I thought the point of the mask was that when you cough and sneeze, you're not blowing it out several feet.
I'll
That's
get to
the
that.
whole
I'll
point
get
of
to
it.
that.
Okay.
So they stopped using masks for any kind of, except for if you're in surgery and there's going to be the possibility of bloodborne large particles, right? Then you wear a mask and a face shield, right? And I'm sure you do when you do your surgery, right, Jeff? Okay. Okay.
You cut a person open.
So all those articles disappeared in 2 weeks. They were all gone. I could not find them anymore on the internet because I went back to reference them and they were wiped. I kid you not. I am not a conspiracy theorist. I could not believe it. They were gone. These are peer-reviewed articles in like Nature and the scientific publications that are respected, that people publish in. They were gone. All of them. Not just one, not just 2, all of them. There was like 4 or 5 that I'm sure there was more, but that's all I found, and I was convinced that that went away, and then all of a sudden we're going to mask. So the mask narrative was, well, we're going to extend this, and we don't want to get other people sick. Yeah, but I'm not sick. Why would I wear a mask? If I'm not sick, why would I wear? No, you have to wear a mask. Why? I'm not sick. I feel fine.
That was even interesting in itself.
It-
Because the Navy conducted one of the biggest tests of it. Because every time somebody in the Navy got sick, they would isolate them. And they would then determine how long they had to, and they had determined way in the beginning.
Yeah, they were one of
symptoms started decreasing.
the DOD was one of the first because they had test subjects that were isolated from the rest of society on ships. So they ran lots of ran lots of tests right away, and they determined that that wasn't true real quick.
So
That you were contagious when you're symptomatic.
by probably spring, March timeframe of 2021,
That's a year later.
they started shortening all the isolation for the military. Active duty, once your symptoms decreased, you went back to work. If you were improving, they determined you were no longer contagious. But we were still required to wait for 10 days. 10 days from onset of symptoms. But they were down to like 4 days. And they determined that the exposure wasn't just like, they calculated the exposure, you had to be in close contact within 6 feet or longer than 15 minutes. Right.
The thing that I was driving at was in the first 2 months how things changed, and there was not as much a lack of evidence as was portrayed. Like, we don't know, there were a lot of we don't knows, but there was a lot of things they did know that they did not divulge. And it came from other countries, basically, because they they acted quicker than we did, because there was still an element of denial going on in certain institutions. So the narrative changed drastically over that 2 months. So you don't know what the truth is, right? Because I'm conflicted now, because I read peer-reviewed articles and I have proof of something that they're telling me that I have to do that doesn't make any sense to me in my experience. If you want to keep yourself from getting something, you're going to wear a half-mask respirator. But I know there was a guy on the internet that tried to wear his half-mask respirator on an airplane, and they wouldn't let him. Why wouldn't they let him? And he got COVID when he didn't wear it. So there's all kinds of stuff like that. So that's what you're saying.
Yes, I mean, if wisdom from the aspect of science is that you can't gain wisdom from something if you don't have all the facts and that, and if well, just as you know, where I forget his name at the moment, but when he says it's like truth, what is truth? I mean,
Pilot,
Pilot, you're right.
Pontius Pilate.
If you make truth whatever you want it to be, then there's the standard always changes depending on the situation, on the narrative, on the person. Where the entire point of science is to basically
To establish fact, right?
investigate, and then through various trials and experiments to come upon, stated facts. We know that gravity exists and that it's true in that because of all the experiments that they've done.
Right. So the scientific method is taking a hypothesis. Well, we think gravity might be real, and then running every type of test to investigate that supposition, and at some point it becomes true, or a fact, or a proven fact, a proven theory that's what we call a fact, a proven theory, right? So you feel like that's changed?
Maybe the way that it's presented. So I'm sure that there's still scientists out there that are still doing experiments to come up with proven facts in that.
Well, especially on gravity, because we have no idea how it works. So, I mean, one of the most basic fundamental things to our existence, and we don't know how it works. We know it has something to do with bending the what?
How big something is?
Yes and no, but
No,
it.
because you can do what feather and a rock and they still.
But that doesn't mean anything that the Earth has the gravity. Never mind. Yeah, thank you.
Pardon?
Earth has gravity because it has mass.
Why does mass produce gravity? Is what I'm talking about.
I thought it was spinning. I thought it was because it was spinning, and then within our,
Atmosphere?
no,
I see what you mean, though.
the
It's
atmosphere.
not fully understood,
So
or else we'd all be able to explain it.
my understand.
It bends space-time is why there's gravity. Is what
Yeah.
the answer is.
Part of it has to do with the spinning within our atmosphere, within the spinning going around is what we were
But even if,
with all the spinning, with the spinning, with the spinning.
yeah, the spinning it has a small amplifying effect, but anything with mass will produce gravity. And the larger it is, the more gravity. Yeah. So,
You know,
this,
the bigger they are, the harder they fall.
at the stairs where you used to stand on when you were a kid and you stand up against the wall and go.
Yeah, the
Then it raise you
Arbitron.
up. It doesn't bring you closer, it would make you go left.
that's centrifugal force. That's not gravity.
But it's spinning.
I know, but that's centrifugal force. That's not gravity. That's not gravity.
Doesn't do it.
Gravity is a pull, an attraction because of the intrinsic mass of an object. That is centrifugal force.
You put a giant ball in the middle?
No. That would be on the wall because it would be, unless it had a huge mass.
That's what I just said, a giant ball in the middle.
It'd have to be bigger than the whole theme park to have any appreciable effect. But again, we don't understand how they don't understand how gravity equates.
He's sleeping.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna call him after.
Yeah, call Vince. He'll know. Vince will know. He's our resident astrophysicist.
It might take him like 10 minutes to remember.
Yeah, I can't. I read all this too, and it went.
You wouldn't be able to explain it the way that we can understand it.
In English.
I said, can you dummy that down so that I can understand it? He looked right at me and goes, no, Aunt Val.
All I know with gravity is the bigger they are, the harder they fall.
Yes.
And that sounds like sin.
So in your PowerPoint, how do you define wisdom then?
Well,
Since we're
yeah.
talking about
So you-
science and wisdom.
So you want me to actually get to that? Okay.
You've got 10 minutes, go.
So, Bereshit is the word for wisdom in Hebrew. And it's a compound word with the prefix be, not obviously not be, but in English it's be, which means with, and Reshit is first wisdom. So it's with first wisdom. So the Aramaic translation of Genesis is, with wisdom, God created the heavens and the earth. That's an actual literal translation. And the Bible correlates that. And I'm sorry I don't have a cord to plug into this because I do have a nice PowerPoint on this. Proverbs 3:19, the Lord by wisdom founded the earth. By understanding he established the heavens. 9:10 of Proverbs, the fear of the Lord is beginning of wisdom, and the knowledge of the Holy One is understanding. Psalm 104:24, O Lord, how many are thy works? In wisdom thou hast made them all. What does this mean, in wisdom? Proverbs 8:23 through 31 says that wisdom was instrumental in the creation of everything. So what does that mean? And I should probably open my lesson to get the rest of it. There it is. I'm skimming somewhat here. So what does it mean? What is wisdom then?
It's applied knowledge.
Yeah, but so God applied knowledge?
Applied understanding in making something.
Knowledge is knowing stuff. Wisdom is knowing how to use that stuff. Right? So I understood wisdom was God having the full breadth and depth of knowledge and knowing what to do with that to create his plan.
Okay. I'll buy that. A lot of times, the underlying information system is what determines what something is. So why are you a person? Because your underlying information system says that you are going to grow into adult female Homo sapien, right? DNA. What is DNA? It's information. And it's a form of wisdom because it's structured in a certain manner. And as the structure changes, the outcome changes, right?
Dioxide nucleic acid
Right,
mixed into a double helix.
right. 4 proteins.
Yes.
So that information system we could call the wisdom of humanity. God created that and we got humans. God created that and we got animals, a little bit different. He created that to be the basis of all biological life, right? All biological life, plants, animals, everything. So that works in many realms. They're finding that there's something that they don't understand underlying not just DNA, but even in quantum mechanics. So you remember, Paul, when we learned back in nuke school that atoms made of little particles, little nuggets, if you will, protons and neutrons. But those, is an electron a particle? Is an electron a particle?
No, I'm not laughing at that. I'm laughing at something different.
Get off your phone.
I was trying to find
Get off your
a
phone.
biblical verse in the Bible about your question of what is wisdom. I'm looking in Ecclesiastes and I found a verse and then I looked at the title and it says wisdom is meaningless. And I started cracking up laughing.
Well, without it, we wouldn't have this whole shebang.
So in Ecclesiastes 1 is where I found it. It's
Wisdom under the sun is meaningless.
Yes.
Right, but like I saw the title of the entire thing and it's like wisdom is meaningless and I just started cracking up laughing.
So back to nuclear particles. So what quantum mechanics teaches us is that those particles aren't particles, they're fields of force, and they're fuzzy and they're extended and they're composed of other quantities of things that we don't really understand very well. The world of atoms and molecules consists of wave-like particles. They're separated from each other by voids, held in place by never-seen massless photons traveling at the speed of light among particles that are not only particles but also waves. Very confusing to me because I learned in depth something very different. So I've been spending years reading and trying to kind of untangle that. I'm not sure I've made a ton of progress, but I've made some. But the more deeply that we probe matter, the fuzzier and less certain it becomes. Particles are composed of lesser particles, which in turn are composed of still lesser particles, and what has been down to the level of what is determined to be and called particle zero, or particle zoo. Strong possibility exists that at the bottom of the pile we'll discover that all particles are manifestations of energy, which is not surprising. Which may turn out to be something even more ethereal. Energy might be wisdom. This is what quantum mechanics is where they're at in their understanding of the subatomic. They feel, religion aside, there's some underlying information system that organizes energy and then up into matter. Like DNA, yes. And they're calling it, they don't have a name for it yet. I guess particle zoo. It's an information system. It's wisdom. The Hebrew word integrating all these would be emet, or reality, that this wisdom, this truth, is what makes matter. And it would be the interface between the metaphysical and the physical. So the metaphysical would, is this wisdom, this information system coming from, a metaphysical source like God. And that would make sense. That would be the interface. So that's one area where that has played out, that they've come to that conclusion, right? And that's not the only one. So molecular biology, you guys know cellular, biology, molecular biology. So until the mid-70s, the accepted wisdom was that the origin of a cell that we refer to as life was the result of chance random reactions among atoms, gradually combining, one chance occurring, right? That's evolution. 3 billion years were thought to have passed between the formation of liquid water and the formerly molten earth and the appearance of the first forms of life. This is conventional science. This is not religion, okay? That was the message of the fossil record of the time. That was the logic of men in science. Now they're learning about the wisdom of God, because after all, how else might one account for the origin of biology? Certainly not by spontaneous generation. Louis Pasteur had laid that primitive idea to rest long ago. 2 to 3 billion years were available for randomness to do its work. That's the magical ingredient. It's time. Sprinkle on, you make everything anything true. Given so much time, the seemingly impossible becomes the possible probable, and the probable virtually certain. Time itself was said to perform the miracle. This human speculation over life's origin has within it an important lesson: not to confuse accepted wisdom with revealed fact. So in the 70s, Elso Barghoum discovered that fossils of fully developed bacteria were found in rocks of 3.6 billion years old. Whoops. Further evidence based on fractionation between the light and the heavy isotopes of carbon, a fractionation found only in living organisms, indicated the origins of cellular life at close to 3.8 billion years before the present, the same period in which liquid water first formed on Earth. So it shot their theory all up. So overnight, the fantasy of billions of years of random reactions in warm little ponds brimming with chemicals in that primordial soup leading to life evaporated. But of course, that wasn't published wide and far, because then all the science books in the schools would be changed, but they didn't. So Barghoum discovered the most perplexing fact: life, the most complexly organized system of atoms known in the universe, popped into being in the blink of a geological eye. That's 3.8 billion year fully formed bacteria. Bacteria is a pretty complex little thing, okay, at the cellular level. So a protein is a string of several hundred amino acids. Amino acid is a molecule having 20 or so atoms. So each cell, every cell in your body, is selecting right now approximately 500,000 amino acids consisting of some 10 million atoms, organizing them into pre-selected strings, joining them together, checking to be certain each string is folded into a specific shape, then shipping each protein off to a site, some inside the cell, some outside, sites that somehow have been signaled a need, somehow, we don't know, signal a need for these specific proteins. Every second that happens in your body. Every cell. Your body and mine, that's why we're living wonders. The entrance to a living cell is marked by passage through a membrane functioning to keep the bad stuff out while letting the good stuff in and expelling what needs to be expelled. Waste products manufactured by the cell itself. But who or what decides what comes in and what goes out? That would seem like a pretty basic thing to figure out, right? But we still have not. According to when I wrote this a couple years ago, we hadn't figured it out. I don't know. A myriad of, do we know yet, Jeff?
I'm just trying to remember from my biology days, and that was like
just to make you feel better, I took anatomy physiology at the college level myself because I wanted to be a nurse. So I don't remember either. Right. According to what I read, we don't know. Let's see. Some ports are gated open by subtle voltage changes across the membrane. So your body has an electrical system, right? So that information is the plan of proteins and other molecules, like Jeff just said, required to produce the portals that allow controlled transport across the membrane. Proteins have never been observed to occur naturally, ever. They can't make them in a laboratory. They've tried. Right? When they're trying to prove that primordial soup, they mixed everything together they could think of and cooled it and heated it in all the different environmental circumstances they could think of to make just a one protein molecule. Never been able to do it in a lab under any circumstances. I find that very interesting. Proteins are the product of a cell's metabolism. There's a chicken and egg paradox in that. So what came first, the cell or the protein?
After school on Friday, Freya said, I learned the hardest question. I said, what did you learn? She said,
The chicken or the egg?
which came first, Mom, the chicken or the egg?
Yeah.
So it's funny that you're bringing
Did you learn the answer, Frito? What's the answer?
The dinosaurs laid eggs and then they turn into bugs. The bugs turn into chickens. The chickens lay eggs.
Okay. You've been spending too much time with your velociraptor loving Aunt Laura.
No, someone just got away at school one time.
Thank you.
They don't tell that to me. That's all I know.
Anyway, sorry.
No, that's good.
I hate to interrupt, but
No, that's
it's really important to
that's-
what we were talking about on Friday.
so proteins make cells function, but cells are needed to make proteins because that's the only way they're made in your body. The step-by-step formation of an orderly, organized structure such as a protein is far too complex to defeat the second law of thermodynamics. Nature favors chaos over order, right? Everything goes from order to chaos. That's the second law of thermodynamics in a nutshell. If I leave this cup sitting here on this for 10 years, it will disintegrate eventually. It will.
The coffee will at least do that.
Well, I mean, left long enough, it will disintegrate. This pulpit will disintegrate. This body will disintegrate, except for my body has energy added to it, so at a certain point it regenerates. I can get stronger and healthier until a chemical process in my body says, start aging, and the hair falls out, the gut gets bigger, the butt gets bigger, you know, everything droops. Muscle tone goes.
He's the way I go.
Yeah, get the chicken neck.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
So that's funny you guys went to that. So the point here is in the cell. How's the cell know all this? One basic energy source, ATP, one set of organelles common to all life, one system for regulating the cell DNA, RNA team. There's an underlying wisdom embedded in even the simplest forms of life, which goes right along with what we were talking about in the physics. And then if we come to the mind, which I don't have time for because I'm out of time, we can start talking about how you actually think. How are you a thinking being? There is a metaphysical interface in your brain. That's the spiritual life. That's the physical, metaphysical interfaces in your brain, in your thought process. But your brain is just an organ and it's all chemical processes, right? Yeah. But it's more than that. How can it be more than that? 1.5 liters of volume of organic electric thinking. 2 to 4, our thoughts emanate from a layer of 2 to 4 millimeters in our cerebral cortex. It covers the very top of the brain. Researchers have proven that synapse can be the site at which a specific piece of information is stored. So we have the synapses. There's billions and billions and billions of synapses in our brains. They can store a bit of information. If we knew all the properties of the single synapse, we might be able to predict the vast analytical potential of joining similar synapses by the billions into an interactive associated network, and we would call that a computer. That's exactly what the processor on a computer does. We have a chemical, highly advanced, extremely fast computer in our head.
Mine's not that fast.
Some are faster than others.
Some have more synapses than others.
Right now, all I can think about is a certain type of particle right now.
So, I mean, I go into consciousness and awareness and how that arises and how that is amazing. But I'm just going to close because I'm out of time with 1 Corinthians 2, verse 11 through 14. For who among us knows the thoughts of a man except the spirit of the man which is in him? What is that? Well, no, what is this? What is that? We talk about it in the abstract, but if all of our cells have underlying metaphysical interface, and all of our mind has a metaphysical interface because it's which is wisdom, right? Information system. Then that is the spiritual element to man. For who among men knows the thoughts of men except for the spirit of man which is in him? Even so, the thoughts of God no one knows except for the Spirit of God. Now we have received not the spirit of the world, but the Spirit who is from God, that we might know the things freely given to us by God, which things we also speak, not in words taught by human wisdom, but those taught by the Spirit, combining spiritual thoughts with spiritual words. But a natural man does not accept the things of the Spirit of God, for they are foolishness to him, and he cannot understand them because they are spiritually appraised. And you can only do spiritual appraisals if your metaphysical interface is tuned to God. Well, then we would not be earthlings.
So, there's this guy
Are you an illegal alien?
on Mega. Go back a
From the
couple
planet
years.
Xenu.
My dad is first generation. But there's this guy on mainstream TV on the Discovery Channel. And apparently they're following behind him that believes that we did not evolve from apes. We have like 124 things that are separate from the animal.
We're closer to a bee than we are anything else.
There is no other animal or creature on Earth. And our circadian rhythm is more closely aligned with what would be the day cycle on Mars. So they believe that all humans came from Mars.
Yeah, there's some stuff about the Anunnaki and stuff, and like some theory about the DNA is Martian, part of our Martian DNA and stuff. I've heard that.
There's also people that are very serious about the fact that the Earth is flat.
I'm just saying
I
that
put them in.
mainstream
I put them in the same category. Yes.
So stop me if I've shared this before. In China, they were, because cloning's illegal in the United States and in a lot of, but in China they started doing cloning of organs, and they sent, the way that we get around it is they send like scientists from Germany and the United States and Sweden all the way over to China so so we can still learn without breaking the law. What they found out is they were trying to clone like the liver or kidney or pancreas or heart, and they started growing heads, limbs, brains, and they had to eliminate everything in their experiments because they were trying to control the growth of just like, oh, Wendy needs a liver. But what was happening was a little deformed Wendy was starting to come out of the liver, and they couldn't figure out why the cells were doing
Huh.
this.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Because every cell in the body has the DNA.
Yeah, the DNAs and everything.
Portion of it.
Yeah.
I just got done listening to a book called Braiding Sweetgrass. It was written by a woman who's a botanist and an environmentalist, but she's also Native American. And, pardon me?
Sorry.
Oh, and I'm hoping I can articulate this correctly, but basically in their religion, their culture, everything has a spirit. Trees, rocks,
Yep.
everything. But several of her students, she is a professor at one of the universities in the East Coast, and several of her students are Christian. They get into some pretty interesting conversations about what their belief system is. But she talks about how the magnetic flux of the earth, how it reacts on small animals and plants as well, which is something that up until the last 100 years or so, we really didn't understand the magnetic pull of things and the connection, but how everything is related and how everything communicates. And in other research I've read, for an example, is if you were to induct a stimulus in a tree thing here, there will be a reaction on the other side of Washington State. They are connected somehow. And when you talked about that underlying energy that we don't understand, it's not just within the human world. It's also
No, it's the whole,
within-
yeah, everything.
It's,
Yeah.
it's within the entire natural world.
Well, I said matter, right? That's everything.
But yeah, I think I am fascinated by that portion of science. But
Well, that's, to me, one of the fascinating things is quantum entanglement. That's, you're alluding to that, where, very famously, Schrodinger's cat, right? Is everybody familiar with that?
not familiar with that.
It's an experiment.
Put a cat
You put a cat in a box.
with like some type of nuclear substance or rock.
No.
We just put a cat in a box.
Just a cat in a box. It's like Dr. Seuss. It's real simple. So, if you never, huh? Yeah, there's a poison in the box, but I don't know that it's a nuclear source. It doesn't have to be. It can be anything. So, is the cat dead or alive?
Schrodinger's cat?
Yeah.
It depends upon the time.
No, you put a cat in a box with poison. Is the cat dead or alive? The box is closed.
If you leave it in there long enough, it'll die. I would say it all matters of time. Like right now, the cat's alive. The cat eats the poison. The cat is dead. So
How do you know the cat's alive?
You don't know, it's dead and alive at the same time, because that's all the information that we have. Our niece and nephew put a cat in a box.
Okay, that's not the point. The point is this: you don't know until you look. Particles, believe it or not, at the quantum level, have no state until they're observed.
seriously,
Truth.
that's cool.
When they're observed, if they're entangled, the corresponding entangled particle, no matter where it is in the universe, and this has been proven, changes state to match it exactly. So how is that useful? You could have instantaneous communication no matter where you are in the universe using quantum entanglement. And then when you start talking about dimensions other than the 3 dimensions that we're in, because we know there's more, it gets even more interesting. But I don't have the brain power to explain that to you. I barely understand it myself, because imagining a 4th dimension is very difficult for somebody that lives in a 3-dimensional world.
It's a trick though. Like,
Yeah.
have you seen what the bleep do we know that came out in the 90s? And they have a ball and they put it at 2 places at once.
Oh yeah, yeah, it's a real thing. It's been proven. So there's a lot, there's a lot of things that we don't understand. We think we have a lot of understanding. We don't have a lot of understanding. How all this works. But I thought it was interesting that different fields in science are coming to the same conclusion that everything was established by wisdom. If you define wisdom as that informational system that makes everything, that make the underlying thing that makes things work. And that was my point in all this.
Great, now I'm just thinking about Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Yeah, he's good or bad. He kind of.
No.
So
Okay.
we watched a study, a documentary when I was going through School for Education. They were talking about that underlying connection between things. And they had sets of identical twins, and it had to be identical twins, not fraternal twins. And they had, so as we're standing, you can see two rooms, but when they step in the room, it's a box. And they would just observe them, and the one twin would do this, and then the next twin would do this. And it's like, as they're waiting for the answer, and then this one would scratch her head, and that one would scratch her head. And it was, they would do the exact same thing without any prompting of, and then they would ask a question, and you would see how they would both react the same. But they were obviously connected. Because every set of twins that came in did the exact same thing. One would shift onto the left foot, and this one would shift onto
So identical, right?
Yeah. But you
Yeah.
know they're connected because they came from the same, right?
Yeah, same.
They're identical, two
Yep.
separate beings of identical origin. They're, obviously still connected.
Yeah, my brother-in-laws are fraternal twins, and they're very different.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Anyways, we're out of time. Yes.
There's one more question. Wasn't there a study about like the 3 sets of twins in different homes?
I don't know.
At one
There
point?
have been studies
There's
or
been
people who
so many.
follow up on twins that have been separated.
They've been watching twins, I don't know, experimenting for a couple of hundred years.
We can probably talk about this after we pray. So,
We could geek out on this for hours. At least I know I could.
Okay. Lord, thank you for the information today. Pray that you'd be with us the rest of the service. Help us to truly worship you today and awesome wonder that you've put in creation for us to find. In Jesus' name.